Greetings everyone and welcome back to Saya no Uta. Let's continue. After we finish our labors and get into bed, I show Saya what I found in Ogai's house.
この一枚見覚えがあるよ。確かにSayaの知ってる場所。
The photograph that Saya has selected is the one with a Tochigi prefecture address on the back.
これは家だよね。それと木と山。
そう。文則すごいね。写真も見られるようになった？
まあね。
At the outset of my ordeal, I had to depend entirely on my sense of distance to decipher what I saw. The houses in front of me, the mountains far behind them, the clouds high above. Only distance and scale told me what they were. Photographs and other flat images used to be nearly impossible to make out. Recently, however, I've gotten better at understanding what things are by their shape. I know what the mountains and sky look like, for instance, and how to tell them apart from buildings. Each of the three pictures shows a similar scene, a lone house in the middle of a thick forest.
パパはね、別荘だって言ってた。ここにいれば誰にも見つからないって。
Judging by the dress on the back of each photo, they probably are excellent places to hide from prying eyes. But why three? The dates are pretty old and it seems odd that they were all taken within a few days of each other. Maybe he was scouting properties, looking for the perfect location for his hideaway. Saya recognizes only one of the houses, so that must be the one Ogai picked. Checking the location on a road map of the Kanto area, I find that it's about 3 hours out of Tokyo by car.
お父さんがここにいる可能性は？
電話してみたけど出なかったよ。多分いないと思う。
でも最近に立ち寄ったことはあるかもしれないよね。
The way I see it, our only hope of finding Ogai is to follow whatever lead we have, no matter how small. The probability that his hideout will yield useful information may be low, but it's not zero.
明日にでも行ってみようかな。
Saya pouts. I wasn't expecting her to object.
でもここ遠いんでしょ？
行って調べて帰ってきても、まあ半日もあれば十分さ。
その間、Sayaはお留守番なの？
So that's what it is. Slightly exasperated, I smile and rub Saya's head.
少しは我慢してくれよ。な？そやだってお父さんのこと見つけたいんだろ。
After a brief silence, during which her expression is hard to decipher, Saya looks up at me and says,
ねえ、文則、パパのことはもういいよ。
That's the last thing I expected her to say.
いいって、でも君のお父さんだろ？心配じゃないのか？
いいの。私にはもう文則がいるし。
Saya says, coming closer to feel my warmth.
パパって言っても本当の意味でのお父さんっていうわけじゃないの。
Maybe he's the one who created her. And I don't mean that in a natural way. I mean, you know, artificially.
Sayaのことを教育してくれたし、ある意味では愛してくれてたのかもしれないけど、でも文則の方が優しくてあったかい。
Saya's words make me happy, but I also hear the loneliness in them.
本当に僕だけでもいいのか？
文則は嫌？
いや、でも、そうだな。やっぱり大貝教授には会ってみたい。
Having finally figured out how to explain my feelings, I continue.
さやのことをもっとよく知りたいから、僕以外にさやのことを知ってる人がいるなら、ぜひ会ってみたい。
Saya doesn't seem upset, but she does tilt her head quizzically as though my thoughts are strange to her.
それに、やっぱり明日この場所に行ってみよ
う。Another plan has started to form in my head, one separate from the search for Dr. Ogai. If I find the doctor there, great. If I don't, well, I think I can find another use for his mountain retreat.
さや、寂しいかもしれないけど、ちょっと我慢して待っててくれ。
She nods, then looks questioningly into my eyes.
やっぱり文則にはさ、家族とか友達とかもっともっと大勢いた方がいいのかな？
そりゃその方が楽しいだろうね。
Fearing that Saya will start sulking, I hurriedly add,
でも勘違いしないでくれよ。たとえそういう人たちに囲まれて暮らしてたとしても、さやだけは僕にとって特別な一人なんだからね。
ありがとう。
Giggling, Saya rubs her cheek against mine.
さやも文則が喜びそうなこと、文則のためだけに頑張るからね。
Today all of Koji's classes were in the morning. On his way to meet Yo for lunch after his final lecture, Koji suddenly gets a call in the middle of the hallway. Without thinking, he reaches to his belt for his new camera phone, but curses when he realizes that the ringtone is coming from the old phone in his bag. He hasn't transferred his contacts list yet, and calls still come to his old phone from people who don't know the new number. When he finally fishes the phone from his bag, the name he sees on the display sends a chill up his spine. Fuminori? Why is he calling him? Why now? What does he want? It's hard to be happy about a call from Fuminori after the incident at the Ogai house.
はい。
いや、コージ。今日はもう講義はないよな。
ああ。
Of course, Fuminori would know that Koji is free on Thursday afternoons.
相談がある。駐車場に来てくれないか。
今すぐにか。
あ、待ってる。
Fuminori hangs up without another word. What's gotten into him? What does he want? Koji wonders as he sticks the phone into his jacket pocket. The sudden change is disturbing after a week of Fuminori avoiding both Koji and Yo. Maybe he's finally ready to talk, in which case Koji should probably consider this a good thing. However, he can't shake the feeling that something is wrong.
待たせたか。
いいや。
In the parking lot, Koji finds Fuminori leaning against the fender of Koji's Accord. The last time they met was in the darkness of an abandoned house. This is the first time in over a week that they've spoken face to face in the light. Perhaps that is why Koji senses something strange in Fuminori's expression. He is not sure what exactly, but something has changed. He's smiling.
話したと思うが、僕は今、オーガイっていう人についていろいろと調べなきゃならない。
そうらしいな。
それがな、ここに来ていろいろと難しくなってきたんだ。やっぱり僕一人じゃ無理かもなって。
Fuminori seems more relaxed than before. He used to be tense all the time, like he was terrified of something, but now his expression is calm. He's even wearing what resembles a sheepish grin.
で、お前にも手伝ってほしいんだ。
Nevertheless, some instinct is telling Koji that Fuminori's changes are not for the better.
一体どういう風の吹き回しだ。
Koji asks, keeping his expression neutral to conceal his suspicion.
だって、お前も関心あるんだろ。
Fuminori responds coolly, his smile, unreadable as ever, offers no glimpse of his true motives.
お前も僕の後から、オーガイ教授の家をいろいろと探し回ってたじゃないか。僕とお前とでバラバラに探すなんて二度手間だよ。どうせなら、協力してもっと効率的にやろう。
Why? Why does he sense malice, thick and vicious, lurking behind Fuminori's smile?
ともかく、今日は足が必要なんだ。車を出してくれないか。
まあ、構わんが。
Fuminori's car was destroyed in the accident, so Koji isn't surprised that he needs a lift. Koji unlocks his car and gestures for Fuminori to take the passenger seat, then gets behind the wheel and starts the engine.
で、どこに行くんだ。
栃木の北の方、那須高原の近所だな。
栃木？
Koji can't believe his ears.
住所はこれだ。この建物を探してほしい。
Fuminori says, sending Koji a photo with an address on the back. He seriously expects to be driven over 100 kilometers and back? Koji doesn't know whether to be angry or impressed.
今から出発すれば、夕方頃には着くだろう。
まあ、そうかもしれんが。
Koji sighs heavily, tapping the steering wheel as he calms himself down. Now that he's come this far, the only thing he can do is see his friend's craziness through to the end.
別荘か何かか、これは。
多分、そこにオーガイ教授もいるらしい。
Koji isn't looking forward to meeting the owner of that creepy house, but he's even more uneasy about letting Fuminori go alone. It looks like he just has to grin and bear it.
東京に戻るのは夜中かもな。
悪いな。
いいさ。
Koji drives out of the parking lot, leaving the rest of what he'd thought to say unspoken. Fuminori's smile seems wrong somehow, like an expressionless mask glued to his face. Yo finds herself sitting alone in the cafeteria, searching for a familiar face as her lunch cools on the table in front of her. She was hoping to see Koji today, but he must have had other plans. That wouldn't be at all unusual. Normally, Omi and Fuminori would pick up the slack. But Omi and Fuminori aren't here anymore. Yo puts down her chopsticks, her appetite ruined by the lack of company and by the anxiety eating at her. Omi is missing. Fuminori has turned on her and she has no idea why. If Koji were here, she could count on him to distract her with some idle conversation. Now that she's all by herself, Yo becomes keenly aware of how little tolerance she has for loneliness. She begins to feel paranoid, like the whole world is plotting to take from her everything that she cherishes. What is going on here? Where has Omi gone? Is Fuminori really unrelated to her disappearance? Or is he the key to this mystery, as Koji and Dr. Tambo suspect? Yo recalls the events of last Thursday, alone and without an outlet for her pain after Fuminori verbally eviscerated her. Yo was lucky enough to run into Koji, although he could hardly make her problem go away. His kindness was a comfort. At the same time, Omi was on her way to Fuminori's house, and she hasn't been here from since. Yo has only been aware of Fuminori's connection to Omi's disappearance since yesterday, when Koji revealed the truth during their visit to the hospital. What if a new possibility occurs to her, a reason for why Omi suddenly decided to visit Fuminori? What if it hadn't been a coincidence that Yo ran into Koji that day? What if Koji and Omi had known what transpired between her and Fuminori and had decided to act separately? Omi might have seen the confrontation in the courtyard. She might have been eavesdropping. It's not unthinkable. As the idea forms in her mind, Yo feels as though something is tearing apart her body from the inside. It's only a possibility, but if it's true, then whatever happened to Omi is Yo's responsibility too, isn't it? Yo clutches her head, groaning in agony. The food on her tray is now cold, not that she would have eaten it anyway. Despite her frustration and anxiety, Yo is unable to act on her own. She has never been good at adapting to challenges, and no one would ever call her proactive. She hasn't the slightest idea how to respond to the situation. If Omi were here, she would probably tell Yo to think positive and trust her instincts. Yo has always depended on her best friend's energy. Now that Omi is gone, Yo realizes just how weak and useless she is. She can only sink deeper and deeper into the abyss of self-loathing. The sudden ringing of her phone puts her back from the brink of despair. It's a text message, there's no title, and the sender is... What? She's still alive? The message itself is even more baffling. If you want to know about Sakisaka Fuminori, come to his house alone. Tell no one. This is a trap, isn't it? A trap laid out by Saya, probably. The message bears no trace of Omi's personality, but Yo can't deny that it was sent from her phone. She takes a deep breath to calm herself before typing her reply, taking care that excitement doesn't cause her fingers to slip. Is that you, Omi? Where are you? Yo press send. The screen shows that her message was received. As she waits for a reply, her mind fills with questions. Is someone else using Omi's phone to send text messages? If so, why to her? Something suddenly occurs to her. She and Omi have exchanged countless messages over the years, many of which contain the sort of embarrassing confessions that close girlfriends share. At times when her feelings for Fuminori grew too strong to contain, Yo often put them into words for Omi to read. Did Omi put a password on her phone? Even if she had, the person who sent the message was obviously able to unlock it, which means that whoever it is has full access to her history. Do you want to know about Sakisaka Fuminori? Yo reads the strange message one more time. Whoever sent it must believe that Yo has an interest in Fuminori. The phone rings again, startling Yo, but she quickly recovers and looks at the screen. There's no title, and the sender is still Takahata Omi. I'll tell you everything when we meet. Come alone, tell no one. It's not Omi, she would never try to scare Yo with such a mean-spirited prank. Anxiety has brought Yo almost to tears. Her mind isn't made to deal with something like this. Who is using Omi's phone and promising to reveal Fuminori's secrets? Who? Yo desperately wants advice from Koji, from anyone. She even starts to dial Koji's cell, but a sudden suspicion stops her. The sender might be somewhere nearby, watching her at this very moment. A cold chill runs down her spine as she looks furtively around the cafeteria. Come alone, tell no one. The lifeless characters on the screen are like a knife against her throat. However, Yo clutches her phone and forces her heart to stop pounding. Isn't this cowardice exactly what she hates most about herself? Doesn't she want to know what she's capable of? Doesn't she want to do more than sit and wait? Yo realizes that her hand is shaking. How easy it would be to just give in to her cowardice, to convince herself that Omi and Fuminori are beyond her reach. That is what she truly wants. Even if it means abandoning dignity and loyalty, she wants to flee from the unknown. But she also knows that even escape is beyond her. Yo understands herself well. She knows that no matter how far she runs, regret and self-loathing will consume her after everything else has fallen apart. In the end, Yo is unable to overcome her cowardice alone. She lacks both the willpower and the courage to run. The afternoon silence is somehow forbidding. A stink is in the air, the stink of garbage left out to rot. Even this perfectly normal residential neighborhood seems ominous to Yo in her current state. She feels like she's standing in the middle of a necropolis, as if everyone in the houses around her is dead. Yo pushes her fear aside and presses the buzzer on the Sakisaka house's front gate. Fuminori wasn't in class today. Is he home? He couldn't have sent those awful messages, could he? She doesn't even want to consider the possibility, so she forces the unwelcome thought from her mind. There is no response from the intercom. Yo doesn't know, of course, but Omi stood in the same spot 1 week ago, staring at the silent intercom with the same confusion that Yo is experiencing now. She, however, is not forced to wait as Omi was. The phone in her pocket rings, catching her off guard. It's another text message from Omi's phone. Come in, the door's open. Yo looks around quickly and a shiver running through her as she realizes that she's being watched. Searching fearfully for her observer, Yo spots movement out of the corner of her eye. On the second floor of the Sakisaka house, a tightly drawn window curtain just fluttered. The person who sent the messages is inside the house. Only now does Yo realize that every other window has its storm shutters closed. No matter what happens inside, no one will ever know. This time she nearly gives in to the intense urge to flee. But the terror she feels towards her invisible watcher is stronger and will not permit her to turn her back upon the open window. She has nowhere to run. Yo bursts into tears, unable to take a single step. The phone in her hand rings again, demanding that she enters. She steps through the gate. When she enters the house, an overwhelming stench assaults her nostrils. The house is dark, even though it is the middle of the day. Fuminori must be out, as his shoes are not in the vestibule. However, Yo catches sight of a different pair stuffed behind the shoe cupboard. They look familiar, so she pulls them out of the shadows for a closer look. As soon as she recognizes them, her mind tries desperately to deny reality. They are identical to Omi's favorite shoes. Yo has seen her wearing them many times before, but that doesn't mean Omi is here, she tells herself. They might belong to someone else, someone who bought the same shoes from the same store. There's no way Omi could be here, is there? In a sudden flash of clarity, Yo presses the most frequently used speed dial button on the phone still in her tightly clenched fist. The phone dials Omi's number. It takes only a second for the signal to reach the nearest relay station, and then a familiar ringtone echoes through the house, the unmistakable sound of Omi's phone. It's coming from the second floor. Someone must still be up there in the room with the moving curtains. Umi's phone rings for just a few moments, and then it stops, as whoever is holding it realizes Yo's intentions. For the first time, Yo feels the definite presence of her formless guide.
誰ですか?
She gathers her courage and calls out into the house, but there is no response. Whoever it is must not want to be seen. Swallowing hard, Yo walks down the hallway to the staircase. Maybe it's Umi, maybe it's Fuminori. Surely it's just the two of them playing a prank on her. Koji might even be here with them. Yo's mind fills with comforting images of her friends. She needs to believe that there is still hope, otherwise she could not take another step.
ちゃんだよね。咲坂くんだよね。
As she climbs the stairs one at a time, Yo calls out in a voice choked with tears. When they see her sobbing, they'll probably laugh at her. Let them. It would be the happiest moment of her life. She just wants this torment to end. She tries to move faster, but her trembling legs will not let her. With each agonizing second that passes, she begs for release from this nightmare. After climbing for what seems an eternity, Yo finds herself standing in the second-floor hallway. No sound greets her, there's only the gloom, brimming with silent malice.
おみちゃん。おみちゃん。
She shuffles forward, calling out in a weak voice.
出てきてよ。お願いだよ。こんなの。もう。やだよ。
The door in front of her is half open. It must lead to the room that overlooks the front gate. Yo watches helplessly from a corner of her mind as her body, seeming to move of its own volition, slowly opens the door. The room is empty. The damp, stinking air clings to Yo's skin. She is at her limit, unable to take a single step more. Her spirit has been utterly crushed. Perhaps this is the moment her tormentor was waiting for. Oh shit. Something grabs Yo's arms from behind, something flexible and strong, like slime-covered rubber. And why are her boobs exposed? As the thing binds her limbs, finger-like appendages tear roughly through her blues and force their way inside. Yo screams at the top of her lungs, amazed that she still has the strength to do so. Responding to her distress, primal energy surges through her body as she flails wildly to free herself. However, the grip of the thing behind her remains unbreakable. With escape impossible, Yo can only scream louder as something cold and wet slips under her bra and wraps herself around her breasts. She is helpless to resist as the invader squeezes her breasts and sucks at her nipples, which have gone stiff with fear under the horrific onslaught. Her ears are filled with the sound of something slimy sliding over her skin. As the loathsome assault on her breasts continues, the unimaginable terror threatens to drive Yo utterly mad. Her throat is already raw from screaming, and now she can't even breathe as she struggles desperately against her attacker. Suddenly, the thing releases its grip on her breasts and pulls out from under her bra. Yo falls to the floor, unable to support herself on her unresponsive legs. The creature that grabbed her is still here, lurking in the dark corner of the room. She can feel it watching her, but can't bring herself to turn around. She knows full well that seeing it will likely destroy the last vestiges of her sanity. From close by comes the beep of buttons being pressed. Yo hears a cheerful electronic sound terribly out of place in this room and sees the phone in her hand blink coldly. A new text message has arrived. She's powerless to stop herself from reading the characters on the screen. You're pretty, and your breasts are so big and soft. I bet they're good for attracting males. Now she has her answer. The messages from Umi's phone were sent by the thing that just mauled her breasts. Yo curls up into a tiny, sobbing ball, unable to raise her voice or even move. The creature makes a burbling sound. Yo somehow understands that it is laughing at her. That must be how you tempted Fuminori. You tried to steal him from me, didn't you? Thief! Oh my. Well, it's not really that surprising that there's tentacle rape in this. So let's skip ahead, I don't want to see this. I won't kill you. Though her mind is now barely functioning, Yo hears a voice whisper to her inside her head. It is the voice of a young girl, sweet and sinister, with the cruel innocence of a child gleefully plucking the wings from butterflies. Instead, I'll let you share in our happiness. Rejoice, Yo, we'll love you to death. The soft voice is a stark contrast to the unyielding strength that drives irresistibly into Yo's core. The pain is sharp and savage, greater than anything she has ever felt before. I've never been kissed, have I?